Hi, I'm Chuck Wadraska, and I'll be doing Sales Week Chapter 15, Exploiting Information Disclosure. If you don't know what information disclosure is, it is the exposure of protected data to a user that is not otherwise allowed access to that data. So, for instance, error messages, version information of maybe your web server or the OS, usernames and passwords, files on your web server that you may not want others to see. And you may be wondering, why is this harmful? It's harmful because attackers can really use this information to pinpoint attacks that would work against your web application. Um, Maybe it shows what your SQL statement was when an error happens, and then they can know what type of injection they need to do. Um, it could be something as simple as enumerating usernames, so when they type a username in the username field and it comes back wrong password, you know the username is good, but the password is bad, so you can just try to brute force that or dictionary attack that. Um, Things like that. It can be fairly harmful if they go unchecked. Here are some common types of information disclosure errors. Script error messages coming from possibly VB script or JavaScript. These could just possibly give you a better understanding of the logic that's implemented on the server-side application. Um, could give you line numbers so that if you were able to produce a bunch of different errors, you could piece together a pretty close copy of what the actual program is. Also, determine the sequence of different parameters and how they're processed. Then there's stack traces. Most web applications are written in languages that are managed execution environments, such as Java, C#, and Visual Basic. When unhandled errors happen in these languages, it's common to see a full stack trace returned to the browser. And a stack trace is just a really well-structured error message that often describes the precise reason why the error occurred. It also typically references any libraries or third-party code components that it uses. Also has some of the same thing as script error messages, where it will possibly print out the line numbers so that you can cause other errors that will give you this, and you can compute. And also, it often will give you version information of the platform being used, such as ASP.NET or Java. Informative debug messages, maybe some kind of custom error message the programmer put in there to help him debug on his web application. Things that may be found in there, like maybe key sessions, credentials, file and directory names on the server, session tokens with meaningful data, encryption keys, and just debug information that may show other things as well. Obviously, if you're the programmer, you want to make sure that you take these out or have some way to quickly turn your debug mode off and on for these custom messages. And last type of common information disclosure I'm going to talk about is server and database messages. Some of these things are like the HTTP 500 status code you see. That's just the server saying that it can't do your request. Has problems. Same 404 page not found. Things like that. They're just generic errors. Usually not very harmful, but they can be used as a conduit for other attacks. Database messages. a little bit worse usually. Like SQL is usually when it fails, it tends to tell you what the query is. This can let you fine tune your SQL injection, so that's kind of a thing to worry about with database messages. And there's also other ways to use this. I won't get into much detail about it, but you can read about it in the book, such as cross-site scripting attacks with error messages and decryption oracles in information disclosure. One of the ways you can find information disclosure is by using Google Foo and searching for common error messages and by file type, so that if they're out there on the web, you can find them. Another good way is through published information. Sometimes the web app may be part of a package, so the application's core functionality is out there somewhere. Oftentimes, people will put their code out there for help, so you may be able to find that code in a forum somewhere. Log files are often a good way to find information. They can contain usernames, URLs, actions performed, session tokens. And even on the client side, maybe the programmer commented out some code and left it there, or they don't cover up passwords in the HTML, but it shows up on the screen as little dots, so it's obscured. Things like that are just good ways to find them and be able to break web apps. So how do you prevent yourself from leaking data? One good way is to use generic errors. If you don't give out a very verbose error, it's much harder to pinpoint what went wrong with the web app. Twitter is notoriously good at this. They usually just give you some snarky remark saying it's couldn't do your action, please try again later. There's a picture of the fail whale. It used to be what it used to give out. But just giving a generic error. Protect sensitive data. You want to make sure to keep things like usernames, log entries, and maybe even user profile details protected by effective access controls. Some things that you usually don't want to disclose but sometimes have to, like credit cards, so a user knows which credit card they want to use. You should truncate that so that they can only see like the last 4 digits. That's usually what happens. So obviously they want to know what credit card that they want to use, but you don't want to show the whole credit card in case it's not them. Things like that. And the last one, minimize client-side information leakage. This is things like making sure that you're not showing service banners that show what specific software versions you're running, and making sure that there's no comments that give away gory details about your software. Things like that. So I have some real world examples I'm going to show you of information disclosure. Just some things I've found out there. Thought were interesting. Vuba.net is a Facebook-like web app developed by a DSU student. So if you're wondering what that is, and D2L is our favorite learning management system, Desire to Learn, so you probably are familiar with at least that one, if not both. So this is Vuba, and I'm just going to cause information disclosure by uploading a text file with a .jpeg extension so that his file uploader thinks it's a photo right away, but when it tries to render it, it'll end up causing an error showing me just a bunch of information. Oh, there's one too, but wasn't even expecting that. So we'll actually go to here. I want to upload pictures and add file. I click on this, try to upload it. You see there's just a bunch of information that he probably doesn't want to expose to an attacker. We can go look at it in more detail because I have a picture of it. Oops. And you can see a bunch of warnings printing out on this image create function because it wasn't actually a valid JPEG file, caused an error that gave me all this information. And it was simple as that, just thinking of something a little bit outside the box that maybe the developer didn't think of. And we'll switch over to Desire to Learn. So this one used to be way better, and I have a picture of it still actually, but I'll show you what it does now. So you used to be able to just switch a number and give you quite a bit better error message than this. But obviously this just gives you the page not found. But what it used to do, is give you this message, which is a little bit, I guess, more information. One, it let us know is a .NET application, although it does on the other one too, just from this. So we know it's .asp. But you can see here, they still did it right. Just they actually took the book's advice. They don't allow remote users to see this information that you'd possibly see on the local computer. And you can see that in the details. To enable the details of this specific error message to be viewable on remote machines, please create a custom message tag with a web.config configuration file located in the root directory of the current web application. Should then have its mode attribute set to off, but it's set to on like the book says it should be. So there you saw FUBA's information disclosure and D2L, even though D2L did correctly handle it in this situation. Just kind of wanted to show you an example of a little bit of both, maybe what could happen. And now I'm going to show you .NET example, just show you stack trace, since I couldn't find one of those out in the real web, so show you that. I'm just going to use burp to capture this and then change the value of one of the parameters to something that doesn't exist in the database, and it should pop up with stack trace. And there you can see, gives you just a bunch of information, invalid postback or callback argument, and you can see stuff like it gave us version information and things like that. I just wanted to give a quick summary again of things. So not all information disclosure is bad per se. even with stack traces and script error messages and all these other things, they may not present any danger to your web app. But on the other hand, there are some that do. So to be on the safe side, you should probably take out debug messages and things like that. When you're testing, you want to make sure that you're also look for these types of things that may give away information that you don't want given away. So besides pounding it with injections and things like that, just being aware of what your web app is outputting and what the error messages actually say. And I hope you enjoyed. And here are my sources. Of course, the Web Application Hacker's Handbook and a book called Threat Modeling.